Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka, and Bitcoin staying steady today. The whole industry is going sideways. The good thing is, at least for today, we're not seeing any huge up and down action. We're going to go a little bit of a different direction today. We are going to talk about our usual stories about Bitcoin, our Market Watch Bitcoin technical analysis. But before we do that, we're going to delve a bit into the Canadian election and potentially the scam that's being pulled right under everybody's eyes. So, Bitcoin critic Mark Carney's chances of winning Canadian election climb. Is it fixed? We're going to get into that. Bitcoin edges higher as treasuries. Basent tempers China trade expectations, and Bitcoin explodes above 94,000. What's igniting the fire is the question. Now let's jump into a very excellent candidate that is running for Prime Minister in Canada. We're going to run right into that in a second because a lot of you probably don't know much about either of these candidates. Everybody knows who Justin Trudeau is. So he was Prime Minister in Canada for 10 years. And effectively, if you can imagine somebody on stage getting booed at and tomatoes thrown at, that's kind of the point where it got at with him. And when it was time for him to finally pass the gavel, they tried to create a non-confidence vote for about a year. The other parties didn't happen. He even his own party wanted him out. No, I'm staying on. Then his buddy, and I believe it's a relative of his actually, he stepped down and said, I'm stepping down on this date. So you guys heard this international news, I'm sure. And immediately after that, there was, within I think 2-3 weeks, there was a vote to see who the next liberal leader will be. Just like the Republican convention or the Democratic convention, right? So the only people who get to vote on that are the actual Liberal Party. And unanimously, they voted for this lifelong bureaucrat, central bank. I can't think of many good words for him. Former head of Brookfield Residential and Brookfield Real Estate Company. Has a number of offshore accounts in Canary Islands where he filters his finances through. He will not show his books. He will not show his taxes. All the other candidates have done so without any issue at all. And basically, he's not to be trusted. He's effectively Trudeau Sr. Then there's a perfectly excellent candidate, and we're going to flip right into him right now so you guys can all get introduced to him. But the biggest problem we're having here is in Canada, there's a media network called the CBC, so Central or Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. That's what it stands for. Now, this CBC is actually funded by the government. We're talking about hundreds of millions a year given to this company. So, of course, this CBC, which has traditionally been the main news channel in Canada, they've always had the Saturday night hockey games, Toronto Maple Leafs, CBC since 1950 or 60 or something, right? So the whole country knows what this is. The whole country watches it. So this is their primary broadcasting company. There's 3 big broadcasters. There's Bell, everybody knows Bell Canada, and there's Rogers Corporation, and then under them, and then there's the CBC. So under these companies, Rogers and Bell, there's multiple other smaller regional media outlets, but they're all basically, it's either Rogers, Bell, or CBC, right? So major funding goes from the government to the CBC. So who is the CBC going to push for their candidate to continue their funding? Well, of course, they're going to keep pushing the same people that are giving them the funding, which is the Liberal Party. And the great candidate, which is from the other party, major party called the Conservative Party, which is the blue. Think of it as, it's the same as the States, right? The red and the blue. Except in Canada, it still means what it's supposed to mean. So think of the U.S., how historically the Republicans were the progressive ones and the Democrats were the conservatives. Well, now it's flipped, and the Dems have gone all DEI and woke, and the Republicans are the Conservative Party, right? But in Canada, it's still that the Conservative Party is still the Conservative Party. The Liberal is exactly the way it sounds. The Liberals, more of a socialist, very much a socialist party. So the Conservative Party and the gent I'm going to introduce you to here in a moment have been pushing to defund this CBC media company, which, well, they should, because they should be standing on their own 2 feet the way every other media company in the world does, right? So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And this is a fantastic candidate, but he's being pushed under the rug. And again, before we get into this, before Trudeau stepped down as Prime Minister, this gent, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, it was approximately 80% of the popular vote was going to vote for this guy in all the polls. And Trudeau was down to like nothing, 10%. Like the whole Liberal Party was in the brinks of collapse because of this Trudeau guy. Then he brought in, Trudeau Sr., without a single vote from Canadians, but now he's actually the Prime Minister, the interim Prime Minister, without a single vote from Canadians. And suddenly the polls have completely changed, and this Pierre Poilievre is almost neck and neck, actually a little behind this Carney fiend. So let's put, I'm not going to give any time to Carney or the Liberal Party of Canada, because they're terrible. It's a terrible party. It's a terrible initiative. They're only looking out for big corporations and not for the people themselves. Let's get right into somebody who does look only for the people. Here we go.
Who is Pierre Poilievre? Many know him as the common sense leader the country needs. His school teacher parents know him as the boy they adopted and raised in their modest home in the suburbs of Calgary. His dad knows him as the son he took to early morning hockey games. His neighbors know him as the boy who used to deliver the morning newspaper. His children know him in Francais, Espanol, and English as Papa. And I know him as a guy who loves me for who I am, a Canadian who came to call Canada home, and his wife. So when Pierre says, it doesn't matter who you know or where you're from, but rather who you are and where you're going, these aren't just empty words. He's lived it. Common sense. Let's bring it home.
So, appears to be a great guy, and he's been opposing Trudeau the entire time Trudeau's been here. This guy's been in the opposition, and he's been effectively trying to keep him in check as best he could, but, without the power, he couldn't do anything. So what Trudeau did is he garnered the seats from the third party, which is called NDP, New Democrats, I think. But they're, 100% socialists, these NDP guys. But they basically teamed up together because they didn't have enough seats to do anything in the government themselves. But when they teamed up together, then they had more than enough seats to cover the conservative seats. So they could basically push through any policy they wanted, and the Conservatives couldn't do anything about it. So a good guy, and definitely who the Canadians should have voted for. Everything he says is the right thing. Everything he does the right thing. So it's bit of a challenge for Canada right now, because they've got the big bureaucracy and, quite honestly, the scam, and it's been proven also that China is interfering with this election, and they're not bringing one person down. Instead, they're bringing the one person up. And that's this Carney fellow. All right, let's check out. Also, let's take a peek at these metrics that I've kind of noticed. Right, so let's go back to this is Poilievre's actual home website for YouTube. Right there, it is, Pierre. It's his official site. So, coming into an election, you would expect that these numbers would boom, right? Look what's happening here. 3 days, a week before the election. In fact, voting's already started. Pre-voting happened on the weekend, and I think the actual vote is Monday or Tuesday next week. But how does this happen, right? Where his page views have gone down a week before the election, whether he was the loser or the winner. How is it that this is going down? So this is, election interference, right? Let me show you another page. And this is Jordan Peterson, right? Who, again, is strongly against, this is their actual, YouTube page. Jordan Peterson, 100% against this Carney guy, right behind Pierre Poilievre. How is it all of a sudden this is Jordan B. Peterson, potentially the greatest psychologist of our decades, right? Everybody knows who this is. But look, he's Canadian, right? And check it out. Suddenly, in the past week, what's happening here? Why are his numbers going down? His viewership's going down right before the election? How does this actually happen? Here's let's take a look at another one. And she's great.
Trump is a symptom of our problems. I know most Canadians, starting with our national leadership, say Trump is our problem. Trump has exposed fundamental problems in our economy.
Brace yourself, because today is going to be one heck of a reality check episode. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated, and we have the truth. I really think that we have finally gotten to the bottom of all of this. And it's one that Pierre Poilievre, I don't even think, has done a good enough job in really drilling into the brains, the reality of this situation. Yesterday, Carney declared that our relationship with the USA was over, and Donald Trump responded to that. The two of them actually had a conversation earlier today, so we will go through what...
So, again, I follow this girl. She talks just facts about Canadian politics. And what's happening here? All of a sudden, looks, pretty even. What? Suddenly, she's dropping? You were talking about hundreds of thousands of viewers for this person here, right? It's not like my channel. But suddenly, it's gone to 80,000, whereas just a few days ago, 200,000. It's consistently 200, 300, almost 350,000. Suddenly, Canadian politics, a few days before the election, she's gone way down. How is this even possible? So there's definitely some manipulation going, and it would be really interesting if I mentioned the Liberals name, if I just got online here and mentioned this Carney guy 100 times, I wouldn't be surprised if my metric then actually went up. And if the very next day I mention Carney, the conservative guy, Poilievre, 100 times, I suspect my metric would go down. And I don't think it has anything to do at all with the actual popularity of the website. You would think that getting closer to the election, there would be more popularity for these people's sites. But instead, it's dropping by 50%. Peterson dropping by 50%. Jordan B. Peterson. Poilievre, the actual candidate, dropping by, 70. He's got less than Jasmine Lane here. And now, out of curiosity, I haven't really checked this before. Now let's check this guy, right? Which I want nothing to do with, to be honest. And see, I can't even find his page. Let's actually Google it instead. Because my theory here is when we find their page, look, we don't even have to get to their page. It's just video after video after video after video of tripe. I'm not going to put you through the agony of having to listen to this guy. See, I mean, they don't even have a YouTube page, as far as I can see here, because they know he needs to basically keep his mouth shut, because every time he opens it, it's like his foot goes directly into it. But yet, the media is pushing this guy like you wouldn't believe, and he's going to run the country into bankruptcy. Everywhere you look, if you type in mistakes, let's say, so we can't find his actual page, but Carney's wrong about everything. Mistakes do happen. Carney on leaking of text on U.S. What? It's just embarrassing. That's all I can say. And it's almost like the Democrats in the States, where people just can't see 2 feet in front of them, and they just keep voting based on what CNN tells them, and in this case, they just vote on what CBC tells them. Now, what I did notice is that the early voting was almost one quarter of the population voted early. So I feel like hopefully that's a good sign for the conservatives. Conservatives, their agenda is very similar to the U.S.'s new agenda, which is lower taxes, save money, cost of living to be more affordable, housing to be cheaper, taxes to be less, getting rid of bureaucracy, cutting the size of government, all the right things. On the flip side, the big business guy in the Liberals is going to do the exact opposite. It's like the Democrat machine in the States, where they're going to spend and spend and spend and spend and spend. They've already announced all this spending, and all they're going to do is spend. And it's so easy to spend, folks. Anybody can get in there and spend. It's difficult to save, right? And still have the same services as you had before, but also save. I could talk all day about this coming election. Let's get back to the biddy, because this is what you all came here for. Bitcoin currently exactly sideways, as we mentioned, 93,200. Ethereum up 1%, 1785. Solana up 0.75%, 149 bucks. Doge down 2.5%, 17.5 cents. XRP down 0.5%, $2.19. So Trump announced that he was going to have the owners of the Trump coin in for some special dinner, and suddenly the Trump coin freaking pumped by like 45% today. It's showing that for the day, but look for the week. Look at this spike, right? From $9 to almost 15 bucks. Like, talk about banana zone, right? Straight up, right when he announced that. So kind of interesting. Sui up. Sui I like. Jasmy I also like, but it's the Japanese Bitcoin, they call it. It's fallen so far. It might be worth buying a little bit of a dip on it, but I don't know how much I trust it. I own a little bit, but it's almost like owning, Shiba, right? The price is like 0.00 crap, right? 0.017. And for the year, she's hurting. Zooming out to the weekly, every single thing in the green for the week. This is impressive, folks. Trump leading the pack, but Sui up 42%. And Sui is, look at their rank, right? Sui's ranked number 11th. They've got a huge market cap, almost 10 billion bucks. And this was a good buy. This is one of the ones I recommended, a few weeks back when everything was tanking for sure. Zooming out to the monthly, it's about a 50-50 mix for the month. Total hash rate as we speak is pretty flat. It's still way higher than, it's almost at all-time highs. Bitcoin, the all-time highs are way up here, so it's way below the all-time high. But they say that the Bitcoin price follows the hash, so we should see this price continue to go up to try and meet this hash rate, right? M2 money supply, we have the global money supply here showing in pink, and the Bitcoin price showing in white. And this is from 2013. So as we've seen and we show every day, the Bitcoin price follows this M2 money supply really, really closely. If you take a peek here, now let's zoom in a little tighter to modern times. Let's go with about a half year, and we see that the price of Bitcoin is generally about 60 days behind the M2 money supply spike. So the M2 goes up, and then a couple months later, the Bitcoin goes up to follow. And we see here that the M2 has gone up, and we also see almost to the T here, right? Look at this. We see that the biddy is also going up. So let's refresh again so we can maybe take a closer look at that kind of metric where the biddy follows the M2 price a couple weeks after. So it's hard to tell in this huge chart with all these years, but the experts, that's what they've said when I've read their information. About 60 days later, they actually, in this one article, it said exactly 56 to 60 days. So, once the M2 money supply rises, the biddy price will follow a couple months later. Total Bitcoin market cap right now is $1.85 trillion. Ethereum $215 billion, XRP $128 billion, Solana $77 billion, Doge $26 billion, Cardano $24 billion, Tron $23 billion, and there's Chainlink at almost $10 billion, and Sui just behind them, $9.6 billion bucks. And check out Sui. Sui's been the one that's been kicking butt out of the top coins here, 42%. Nothing comes close in kind of the top 15 here, right? 42% for the week. So a very, very solid buy. I wish I had picked some up. It might not actually be too late. The price is still, $295 is pretty reasonable, right? Total market cap for the entire industry, $2.88 trillion. Currently, Bitcoin's holding 64.5% of that. Ethereum, 7.5%, and XRP, 4.5%. Currently sitting in 63 in greed. Yesterday was a 72 in greed, and last week was a 30 in fear. Bitcoin next halving is going to happen in approximately 1,085 days with 156,301 blocks left to mine until that time. Total assets by market cap globally, we see that gold's actually come down a bit. They were up over 23 trillion. Now they're at 22.3 trill. Apple 3 trillion, Microsoft 2.7 trillion, Nvidia 2.5 trillion, Amazon 1.9 trillion, silver 1.9 trillion, Google 1.85 trillion, and there's the Biddy 1.855 trillion. The three of these were really fighting it out yesterday, almost identical between number 5 and number 8. Saudi Aramco 1.6 trillion, and Meta 1.3 trillion. You can currently get 1,072 satoshis for one fiat US dollar. And speaking of the fiat, the current U.S. national debt is $36,763 billion, equaling $107,439 per U.S. citizen, or $323,049 per U.S. taxpayer. The Department of Government Efficiency has saved up until now $352 billion bucks, which equals to $3,136 per U.S. taxpayer. That's almost $100 from yesterday. Saving money left and right. Good for them. Now, the Poly market has got this Carney clown way ahead, and it's pretty painful. Let's hope that this guy does not. Let's hope for once that the Poly market's wrong. The Poly market had Trump winning, and everybody thought, oh, Poly market's all wrong, but it ended up to be correct. Right now, they've got this central banker, I guess would be, CBDC pusher, net zero initiative. He's the guy who started globally the net zero. I mean, this is who we don't want. It doesn't work. Your policies do not work. Your policies are going to bankrupt the country, and his only agenda is he opposes Trump. Trump will not make Canada the 51st state. That's it. That's what he's been running on, and it's embarrassing. The Poilievre guy has some really, really great policies, and I just hope when it comes to election day, people are smart enough to see right through the fakeness, just like they did in the States, and go into Poilievre. And this Poilievre guy will be more conservative. So, a lot of the Republicans, right when Trump took power, of course, he started doing exactly what he said he was going to do, shut the borders, shut the spending, and start making the economy better so people are saving more money. Well, he started to do this tariff thing to try and do the right thing and negotiate better deals to make things cheaper for the states. But of course, the medium jumped on him right away, and stock market crash and this and it's all the media. I realized it's all the media, folks. Oh yeah, and Carney wants to continue his censorship on media on top of that. So it's just ridiculous. Poilievre, on the other hand, wants to make things completely transparent. No more censorship. Open up everything the right way. Back to the biddy. They edge higher as Besant tempers China trade expectations. And we saw the stock market way up today. Biddy sitting sideways, but, a little up. Everything was up. The price of Bitcoin added to yesterday's gains despite dipping earlier Wednesday after Trump administration latest zigzag on trade. The leading cryptocurrency recently trading hands around $93,500, up 2.5% over the past 24 hours, according to crypto data provided by CoinGecko. It had fallen near 92,000 earlier in the day. Ethereum and Solana rose 5.3% to 1780 and 4%, $150 respectively. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that U.S. President Donald Trump hasn't made a one-sided offer to reduce tariffs on China, which can be up to 245% on certain goods, per Bloomberg. It may also take years to iron out a deal, he added. Bessent's posturing toward China appeared to represent a reversal from the day prior when the official reportedly said at a closed-door investor summit that a deal with China could come soon and that Trump's trade war was unsustainable for both sides involved. From the Oval Office, Trump told reporters on Wednesday that tariffs on China will come down substantially, but it won't be zero, per Fox Business. The president did not specify how low tariff rates could be, but expressed optimism that a deal could work out very well. Trump and Bessent's recent remarks have provided investors with notable relief, according to Arielle Barthair, principal research analyst at on-chain analytics platform Nansen. However, volatility could pick up again as negotiations with China continue, she told Decrypt. It feels like we've maxed out on tariff-related fear, she added. While many remain uncertain about where things will be headed over the next month or so, it also seems like markets were just waiting for the slightest signal that we're back in the game. On Wall Street, the S&P jumped 2%, NASDAQ 2.5%, Strategy climbed 1%, MicroStrategy, Coinbase increased 2.5%, while spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds have generated notable outflows amid Trump's on-again, off-again approach to tariffs. They had the strongest daily intake since January 17th. Jake Osterviscus, an over-the-counter trader at the market maker Wintermute, wrote on a Wednesday note. Investors poured in $913 million into the spot ETFs led by ARK 21 shares, so almost $1 billion in spot ETF inflows, which pulled in ARK Invest, good for them, which pulled in $267 billion according to crypto data provider CoinGlass. That was 200,000 shy of the ETF's best day in mid-November. So lots of money flowing back into the biddy, and there's a very good chance that the biddy will continue to pump up, baby. I feel like it will. Again, if there's a price dip, another opportunity to buy the dip. 93,000 is a far cry from the 77, 78, even down to 74.5 at one point that we saw during this, tariff scare. And, over here at CryptoNews Global, we've been calling this a buy the dip opportunity, a negotiation tactic, literally from the beginning. So what I can tell you about my own portfolio is I was buying the dip and buying the dip and buying the dip, and every time the price went down, I would buy the dip, and every time it hit 80 grand, I'd buy the dip. It hit 75 74. I didn't quite get it at 74, but I bought the dip, I think, at 76. I bought the dip again at 76. I bought the dip at 77. And now that the price have gone up, I'm in the green, right? I've said this many times. You want to buy when the price is low. You don't want to buy when the price is high. You want to buy as anti-reason. There's no psychological reason for people to be buying any asset when the price is low, right? This is what gets people. Psychology says, why the hell am I going to buy it when the price just tanked, right? But wisdom should tell you that I am buying it when the price tanks, because instead of being able to buy, 1,000 XRP, I can now buy 1,500. They're exactly the same thing, but because the price went down, now I can afford more of the exact same thing, right? Same thing goes with, traditional financial assets. I remember the price of, Apple was $5. They were ready to go bankrupt. That must have been maybe in the 90s. Probably somewhere in the 90s. And me not knowledgeable back then. Oh, no way I'm going into there. I'm going to lose my money, right? So think of it that way. Now, 30 years later, even if I had bought one at $5, right, $100, I could have got 20. I'd be laughing, right? So you kind of want to look at it that way. In a few years down the road, once we get into the late 2020s, mid 2030s, early 2040s, these prices of 93,000 or $2.20 for XRP, or $150 for Solana, or 17 cents Doge, $2.97 Sui. We're going to look back and say, holy crap, these things are, Bitcoin's at $2 million, or more, right? XRP's at $200. Doge is at $50. Solana's at 10 grand, 20 grand. You can't look at today. Look for tomorrow. Have a long-term horizon. Expect to own an asset for a very long time. Not a couple hours, not a few days, not a few months, potentially not even a few years, but, half a decade, 2 decades. This is the time horizon people should be looking at. When you have an investment, and I'm not talking a investment, there's investments that you have where I want to save for a trip, I want to save for a house, I want to save for a car. Fine. Okay. These, you can call them investments, very well, but really what they are savings plans. When I'm talking investment, I'm talking about your retirement income. Okay, when you're thinking about that investment, you should be looking at 20, 30 years into the future. If you look at it that way and you don't touch this stuff, you buy it when you're 18 years old, 22 years old, and you don't touch it. This is the account that you do not touch. You leave it and you let it climb and climb and climb. When you do things that way, you're going to be way, way up. There's going to be a point coming soon. Let's be frank, folks. Everybody hears it. Everybody knows it. The AI revolution. AI is going to take everything over. And it's also going to take over half the jobs. My mistake. 75, 80, 90% of the jobs. If everything is automated, what do we need people for? So what's going to happen at that point is money is going to be automated too. Where's the money going to go? The money is going to go to electronic funds. The money is going to go into money that can be tracked, fully tracked. Not gold in somebody's vault, not fiat money, under your mattress or wherever they can't find you. It will be fully tracked for everybody, whether it's CDBC, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's XRP, even under self-custody, folks. Once you touch this or move it, there's a trail, right? Once this happens, the price of these assets are going to go through the roof, right? Things aren't going to be, we look at Bitcoin and we say, how the hell could it be $90,000? Like, that's so expensive. But don't forget, 10 years ago, it was, $19, right? $9, 9 cents, 90 cents. Ethereum, I gave you the story when I started. It was $150, and I was like, oh man, that's a lot of money. I don't know. And right, and I sold it at $1,500, and I cried hallelujah, and then watched the price go up to $5,000, and kick myself. So if I had simply held on to that $150 Ethereum and said, okay, well, I'm going to hold this for 15 years, the price would definitely be, $20,000, $30,000 for per Ethereum that I bought for $150, right? So look at it that way. Have a long-term horizon. Do not look at the daily swings, up one day, down the next day. If the prices dip, perfect. Don't sell it. Buy more. That is your time to buy the dip. I'm so happy that the term buy the fucking dip has become a little more mainstream, and it's because of Bitcoin. So people start to understand that when the price goes down, this is when you want to buy. When the price goes down on TVs, isn't that when you buy it? When the price goes down on, phones or watches or whatever, pants, shoes, this is when you buy it. So why wouldn't you buy the asset when the price goes down? It's the exact same thing. Buy the dip. Buy it on sale. Once you buy it on sale, when the price goes to regular price again, you've already made 20%, 30%, 40%. Right? Look at Sui, 45%. The Biddy from 78 to 93. What is that? 20%. Ethereum, Solana, everything. Everything is up. Buy it when the price is low, when everybody's pooping their pants and running the other way, and calling Bitcoin left for dead, and the stock market is terrible, and oh my god, it's so unpredictable and volatile, I have to get out, tariffs, and they sell everything and lose their shirt because they're selling it on the low price. This is when you want to be jumping in and saying, ha ha ha, looky, Apple is on sale, Nvidia is on sale, Bitcoin is on sale, amazing. Even if you're buying a few bucks, couple $100, $50, whatever you've got, this is the time to buy. And I feel like in terms of over the long run, this is still very inexpensive, these prices for all of these assets. As long as you make a conviction to hold for the long run, right? Folks, there's $900 trillion worth of assets out there in the world, so there's lots of money. Go out there and get some. It's time that's scarce, so spend your time wisely, please. Spend less money than what you earn, and if you suddenly start making more cash, start saving more money. Don't start spending more money. And start spending, start saving when you're young. Ideally, in your early 20s or in even late teens, and hopefully you can retire when you're 40. Try and achieve 0.1 Bitcoin for starters. If you can do that, that will certainly help you in this retirement. Try to achieve, if you get the 0.1, try to get to 0.2, 0.5. Become a whole coiner, right? Slowly. These things don't happen overnight. If you've got a great idea, start with your great idea right away. Even if you're not ready, jump on that idea and things will come together for you. If you found this stream enjoyable, please share, like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next stream. Folks, thank you so much for joining.